Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Bear Down Ballers here on the Field of 68. I'm Ryan Wall, joined as always by Jordan Pollock. And Jordan, this past weekend, Arizona moved to 2-0 on Saturday. They did it in spectacular fashion. They won 102 to 44. Just an absolute beatdown, 58-point victory. What are your thoughts and how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's been a good weekend. Some great basketball games. How quick we've jumped into this season. And yeah, Arizona they played superb on Saturday. They put a beat down on Old Dominion.
Yeah, it was a beatdown to say the least. They dominated, and where I wanted to start was with Toby Awoka. His first game, he only had a couple points. Didn't really show his scoring touch as well. Hasn't never been a big scorer during his college career, dating back to his time at Tennessee, but he showed that he does have some scoring potential, and maybe he can unlock that at Arizona more often. 18 points, 15 rebounds, 2 blocks, 1 steal. This guy was everywhere, all over the place. 8 for 10 from the field. We talked about production from a big guy in the paint, from a front court player. That was Toby Awaka against Old Dominion. That was shades of a Umar Balo dominant game. I know it's against the lesser opponent, but still, that was very impressive. I was just, it was good to see Awaka display his scoring touch, and it seems like Arizona's front court looks a little better to start than I even expected.
Yeah, definitely, especially from an efficiency perspective from Milwaukee. Even Henry Vasar had I thought, a very good game. 4-10 from the field, 10 points, 1 rebound short of a double-double himself. So having your front court, they combined for over almost 40 rebounds and almost 30 points, I think's great. I don't think there's much you can ask for, especially that neither of these guys played for Arizona last year. Vasar's still coming off an injury. He's getting better. He's getting more minutes. And then Awaka kind of feeling like the transition's becoming a lot easier and a lot better for him. He's starting to get the flow of the offense. And this game just happened to get him a lot more paint touches, and he was able to be super efficient with it. And he could have even got over 20 if he would have made some more free throws.
Yeah, and you mentioned Vasar, and him and Awaka, they only played about 20 minutes. Vasar played 20, Awaka played 21, but to have that level of efficiency, they both, Vasar almost had a double-double, like you said, Awaka a big 18-15 double-double. To have that level of production in that type of, minutes, under 25 minutes, is very impressive, and I like what Tommy's doing. I don't know if how his strategy will change. We'll get into it later when they get into games against Power 4 teams and Wisconsin and Duke in the next 2 weeks. But I like if he goes, if the starting, whoever he starts at center, if it is Awaka or it's Visar or if it's Krivas. I kind of like that he's not playing the starter a ton and working in the backups more often. I think it gives different looks. It's giving everybody an opportunity. And yeah, I really like that. And yeah, I think that's a key to this team. I mentioned it in our first episode 2 weeks ago that this team needs to find consistent production from the center position. Seems like we have just that through 2 games. But who else stood out to you in this blowout victory by Arizona?
I thought Anthony Del Urso played very well off the bench as well, putting in 11 points, 2 of 5 from 3 off the bench. I thought that's great production from the bench, and combining him, especially with Vasar, getting 20 points from your unit, I think's great. And that's even without even talking about Bryant's production that he pulled off the bench.
Yeah.
Especially three of your 5 top scorers coming off the bench is pretty great, and it shows the level of depth that this team has. It'll be interesting, especially when you get down to some of these tougher games over the next few weeks, how these minutes are going to be kind of separated, and that's even without adding Krivas into the fold of how many minutes is he going to get, and how's Tommy going to share that load with the guys, because the more guys you kind of go off the bench and you have starting and getting valuable minutes, then it takes possibly other guys' minutes away, and it takes their flow away, and it gives them a little bit less opportunity to get hot at certain times. So that can be the player's downfall, but that can also help a lot of guys too, because it can help them get settled into games if he's going to lean on more hot-handed guys, if somebody's getting a little colder and he's going to sit them on the bench and give other guys an opportunity. So I think it's a good thing if those rules can be defined quicker rather than later. Because if you're going 8 guys deep and minutes are changing every other night, I think that's definitely a lot more challenging, especially if you're playing a lot more guard heavy teams. If it's against specific styles, then I understand it. If one day you're going up against a super heavy front court team that starts a power forward and starts a center, and you're just trying to throw bodies from the front court at them, I think that's different. But if you're just interchanging the roster just from game to game, depending on how your guys play, I think that can be a scary thing to kind of go through a season with guys still not, because it just doesn't give guys an opportunity to settle into their roles and try to figure out what they need to do best to help the team win.
Yeah, 100%. Five scorers in double figures for Arizona in this game, and they had five guys off the bench that all played over 10 minutes. I know they had everyone got in at least a minute during this blowout victory, but I 100% agree. You can't run. Nobody has a 10-man rotation in big games, and when you get in the crunch time later in the season. So Tommy will have to figure that out. I assume that the minutes that will get shrunk are between Krivas and Vasar. They both have showed flashes. Vasar's stats have been better to start. I really don't know whose minutes you kind of take from there, but I just don't imagine that they both will play as much in big games, because normally you don't see two bigs playing a bigger role, and the starter will play more minutes. So yeah, I kind of wonder where that'll come, because Conrad Martinez already looked pretty good as a backup point guard. I like what I've seen of him, but you mentioned Del Orso. I really liked what I saw from him. He even can handle the ball a little bit, so I think they can get away with sometimes with either, like I'll get to in a minute, they played Bradley with the second unit or play KJ Lewis with the second unit to kind of have the point guard duties. So I like that. But the next guy that stood out to me was Carter Bryant, the freshman 5-star guy, 12 points, 4 rebounds, 5 for 7 from the field, 2 3-pointers. He did break a three on one of those misses, but he did have two great makes there, and it's great to see his confidence continuing to grow game in and game out. He had that breakaway highlight dunk. Carter Bryant is an elite athlete. He could be the best behind KJ Lewis, could be the best athlete on this whole team. He is just unbelievable. He has that it factor about him when he plays. What did you think about Carter Bryant in this game?
Yeah, I agree. I think you hit the hammer on the head. Like, he has the if factor, and then him and KJ Lewis and just their explosiveness on the court. It seems like every time they're out there is on full display, of whether it's even on the defensive end, getting steals, getting blocks, or on the offensive end with flashy dunks. It's awesome to see, because I think, especially with Arizona historically over the last 10 years, we'll see these athletic freaks that'll come in, and if depending on how long they're in the program, of how well their game develops, and them taking it on to the next level, like Aaron Gordon back in 2013 and 14. I remember his thing was he was just an athletic freak, and he's going to out jump guys and get rebounds all days, and sit in the paint and just eat guys alive. And now we see him in the NBA as a very big role man, of one of the best 1 to 5 defenders in the game, and helping the Nuggets get to a championship. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys develop their skill set going into this season.
Yeah, and one of the last things I wanted to touch on this that I noticed from this team is one of the second units that Tommy put on the floor. He went really big. He went with Henry Visar, Toby Awoka, Jaden Bradley, Anthony Del Orso, and Carter Bryant. So the smallest guy out there was Jaden Bradley, but all those other guys were 6'7" and taller. So a supersized lineup. But the problem that I saw through a couple possessions while Tommy had this lineup on the floor was that they struggle sometimes to score the basketball because some those guys, although Bradley has been a great scorer, and Del Orso in periods, they don't have that guy that can just get a bucket whenever he wants. And so I think that if that continues, he might need to start to change that, the kind of just the flow, because sometimes KJ Lewis is doing it the second unit and sometimes it's been Bradley. So I think he needs to change the flow of that. But I just was kind of thinking about that myself. What did you think about that second lineup?
Yeah, I agree. They don't have a get a bucket kind of guy, but especially going into the Big 12, we have some of these main teams that just run sets nonstop. They'll run high pick and low actions and try to see what they can get off that. Like Baylor the other day against Arkansas, they were just doing high ball screen action the entire game, trying to see if Cal could defend it, and Arkansas, as you saw, could not defend that the entire game. So I think having specific lineups and having specific actions off of that, I think is probably something we're gonna see going forward, especially going to the Big 12, where that kind of thing is super popular and guys just staying in specific actions. So I think especially when they get into teams with better front courts like this week against Wisconsin, I think that lineup is probably going to be shown at times.
Yeah, for sure. Overall, great win, 58-point victory. Can't complain. Caleb Love did have 10 points, 3 rebounds. Jaden Bradley had 7 and 3. KJ Lewis, 8 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. And Townsend put in 9, 3 and 2. A little more efficient night from him. But yeah, it was great victory. And when we come back, let's get into this Friday's matchup against Wisconsin on the road at the Kohl Center. All right, we're back, Jordan, and let's get into this Friday's matchup. Like I said, against the Wisconsin Badgers, they're 2-0, but last year Arizona beat them by 25 points in Tucson, but this time it's taking place in your home state of Wisconsin at the Kohl Center. It's Wisconsin. It's Arizona. It's taking place at 9 p.m. Eastern on Peacock. So a big matchup against a power forward team. Yes, they're not a ranked team, but they're still a hell of a lot better than the teams Arizona has played before. Arizona, like I said, won the previous matchup. But overall, in this series, Wisconsin has got the better of Arizona. They've won 5 of the 8 all-time matchups. And the last time that these two teams faced off in Madison, Arizona lost 51-46, and it was in 1962. Jordan, what are your first thoughts about this game against two of your favorite teams to watch?
Yes, that game in the '60s was a barn burner. I remember that very high scoring game for that time. Yeah, I'm excited for this game. It was a game I went out to Tucson for last year. I predicted Wisconsin to get the upset. I was very wrong in that game. It was competitive in the first half, but the second half was not competitive really in the slightest. And I thought it was kind of funny because a majority of the guys that were super pumped and amped about that game, I remember, were Pela and Umar Ballo. And Pela played, I think he had like at least like 4 or 5 threes in that game.
Yeah, I think he did too.
But they were just super amped for that game. I think the level of motivation for this game is probably going to be definitely a lot different, especially the fact it's not in Tucson. But as I stated, the Wisconsin Badgers Hall of Fame will be inducting Bo Ryan, and they'll be putting up a banner for him in the Kohl Center that night. And they're bringing back a bunch of guys from the 14 and 15 Final Four teams, both of those teams that did beat Arizona. So I think there will be a sense of motivation, I think, in the other way for Wisconsin of just wanting to honor those guys, honor the team, honor Bo Ryan. But I do see this as a game for Arizona still to pull it out. They're just better team right now. They're more talented. though Wisconsin hasn't looked bad necessarily. They've played some really um, minor teams in the Division One level, and they've had some close ones, and then they've had some blowouts. But I don't see this one. I just don't see a way that this one really can go Wisconsin's way. I know they have taken up their 3-point shooting a little bit more than they have recently, and Greg Gard has talked about that. We're going to shoot threes because that's a lot more of our identity. That's where the game is going. But I just don't see a huge way that this one gets into the court for Wisconsin to pull out an upset.
Yeah, Wisconsin, they shoot at about 37% from three. They have a couple guys over 40%. Steven Crowell is 40%. John Blackwell is 41.7%. But this team is pretty deep. They do have five guys that are averaging double figures. Uh, they got John Tonier leading the way. He's in his sixth year, third different school. He's been playing well, averaging a little under 18 per game. Max Klesmit's averaging over 7 per game more than he did last year. They have a couple guys that have taken that leap into starting roles this season. But yeah, like you said, I do think there's a big talent gap. I said that last year when Arizona played Wisconsin. Obviously, it's a different team for Wisconsin and for Arizona for that. But yeah, I think Arizona should win this game. We were talking before we started recording, and we kind of both said when we were trying to guess the line for this game because we're recording this on
Mm-hmm.
Monday morning. There's no line out. We both kind of said 7 points. I think that's kind of right around the sweet spot of where I think it will be at. But I don't think Arizona's going to win by 25. I still would be shocked if Arizona doesn't win this game by 10 points. Arizona is just the deeper team. They're the more talented team. They have the better athletes. They can play a lot of different ways. So yeah, I really think that this one should go Arizona's way as well. Do you have any other thoughts about this matchup on Friday night?
Yeah, I think one major thing, especially in college basketball, we'll see over time, especially when you get into March, is teams that are experienced. Sometimes experience can eclipse talent, and I think that's one thing Wisconsin is not lacking in this department. Of their seven guys that roll deep, pretty much only two of them aren't seniors. Max Klesmit, I think this is his second or third year in the program. He was a transfer from Wofford. He's a senior. John Blackwell, he's coming back. He had a great freshman year last year, but he's the sophomore starting. John Tonje, as you said, he's a sixth year, spent 4 at Colorado State. He went on a deep tournament run. Last year had injuries at Missouri. This is a sixth year. Stephen Crowell, this is his fifth year. Kamar McGee, he was a transfer from Green Bay a few seasons ago. This is his senior year. Nolan Winter, that's another sophomore. Carter Gilmore, he's a fifth year senior, I believe. So this team is very old. They're very experienced, and and all these guys, they've at least been in outside of John Tonje, they've at least been in the program 2 years. So that's one thing that Wisconsin does have going for them in this matchup, and we'll see if Wisconsin can make the Kohl Center a good environment. Historically, they're a tough team to beat in the Kohl Center. So I think it'll be a
Yeah.
fun game. I'm excited for it. And it'll just be a fun weekend there too, because Wisconsin also hosts Oregon, number one team in football, the very next night on
Yeah.
NBC as well. So it'll be a fun weekend. I would very much more so side on Arizona -7 if that was the line. Um, but I think it could be a fun game. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think it'll be a good game.
Yeah, I'm just excited. Like I said, told you the other day watching that last game versus Old Dominion. I'm just excited for Arizona to face another Power Four team in the country, and to face a big time program, a big time fan base and crowd, and they just kind of. I love that. I love these early season matchups between two good programs because it gives you an early test about where you're at in the season. And because it's just so hard to tell when you're playing Old Dominion, when you're playing Kinesis, and you're playing Holy Cross like Wisconsin did and other, lower level D1 teams.
Yeah.
But I think we're kind of on the same page about where we think this will go. We both
have it as an Arizona victory. But Arizona, after this game, doesn't play, kind of have a football schedule the next 2 weeks. They play on Friday the next 2 weeks. This Friday, first Wisconsin, like I said, 9 p.m. on the East Coast, on Peacock. The following week, they're playing Duke. That one should be unbelievable on ESPN. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in, for viewing, liking, watching, and subscribing to today's episode. I'm Ryan Wall. He's Jordan Pollock, and we'll see you next time.